Hey, so this is AJ Ali with Love is the Answer. I'm here with Nat Alston, Bil Gardiner, Andrew Collins, and the subject of today's talk is Free Jameel McGee. Some of you may have seen Andrew and Jameel in the film Walking While Black, Love is the Answer. That's the film that kicked off this movement, the Love is the Answer movement. And unfortunately, Jameel, his and Andrew's story of how they met and how they wound up both going to prison and then both becoming friends and really brothers more than friends after they both got out. It's all in the film. Um, and now many of you probably don't know that since the film came out, Jameel got locked up again, and this is the third time that he spent time in prison, more than a total more than a decade of his life, and he's been in for something that he should have maybe not gone in for at all, and certainly shouldn't be in there for this long. So that's the topic of conversation today. We're trying to shine a light on what's happening with Jameel, knowing that many of you who are watching also have people in your family or friends that are going through the same exact thing. And it's an unfortunate practice of abuse that we want to see come to an end. So I'm going to start out with Andrew. Andrew, welcome, brother.
Thanks,
Um,
man.
yeah, how you doing?
Good, good. Yeah. So my goal here is just to give a brief history of what got Jamel into the place where he's at now, and then just a call to action. There's some tangible things we can do from the outside that can help him where he's at. He's very much in a lonely, isolated place, prison, and the case manager who is in charge of checking on the status of his release is just being willfully ignorant and choosing not to check in on some simple things that would help Jamel get some answers. So in 2019, August of 19, Jamel was caught with a gun. It was his brother's gun, registered to his brother. His brother had a permit to carry it, left it with Jamel on accident, was coming back to pick it up. Jamel had it on him. Somebody had called the police, said, I just saw a guy put a gun in his pocket. It was a high crime area. Officer pulls up, takes his gun out, points it at Jamel, tells him to get his hands on his head, asks him if he has a gun. Jamel cooperated, told him, yes, I have a gun in my pocket. It's my brother's gun. Ended up going to jail that day for possession of a firearm by a felon. Jamel, when he was in his teens, did end up with a felony on his record. So it is illegal for him to possess a gun. He knows that. He knows he's wrong in that. He's never shirked the responsibility for that. He said it was a mistake. I shouldn't have done it. Week goes by back in August, and we find out that the charge of resisting an officer was added to that charge. Not only is it possession of a gun by a felony or by a felon, it is also felony firearms, which is a unique law, I think, just within Michigan, where we have decided that it's bad to rob a bank, but it's even worse to rob a bank with a gun. So if you commit a felony while possessing a gun, it's a 2-year add-on charge. Well, what was the felony that Jamel committed? The felony he committed was being a felon in possession of a firearm. So you can see charging those two charges. It's a double charge. It's what prosecutors do all the time. They're stacking the charges, hoping that you'll plead guilty. And then they also charged him with resisting arrest, which was interesting. Asked Jamel, what happened? He said, I don't know. Nothing happened. The guy was nice. As far as officers go, it was a civil interaction. So we get to the preliminary examination, and the officer was asked on the stand, did he pull away from you? Did he punch you? Did he run from you? The officer said, no, no, no. He said, did he resist you? And the officer says, no, he didn't. And I said, well, why'd you charge him with resisting? He said, I didn't. The prosecutor's office did. So they called for clarification, and the clarification that was given to the judge is that if you watched the police video, the officer yells, get your hands on your head, and Jamel puts his hands in the air. He never touched his head. And therefore that is not listening to the direct words of a police officer.
Wow.
So they added a 4-year felony. So this was August of 2019. He was out on tether. He had a job, was working 40 hours a week while on tether. And then he was arrested in February from his work in front of his boss. Pretty embarrassing moment. Had not violated any, had not pressed against the violations of the tether. They simply locked him up and then charged him with a couple a couple more crimes that were later dismissed. Well, that was February of 2020. We all know what happened in March of 2020. The pandemic hits. So Jameel sat in jail from February 2020 till April or May of 21 when he finally pled guilty. And all that time in the county, we fired his first lawyer. We weren't satisfied. We ended up raising a bunch of money and hired a lawyer who has recently been arrested for over 10 counts of criminal sexual conduct. He was raping people he was defending, allegedly. He's not, I don't think he's pled guilty yet, but over 10 young women, some under the age of 13, have come forward to say that he refused to represent them unless they offered their sexual favors to him. So the man who took Jameel's case, who we entrusted with all that money, is now himself in that situation. It gives you a glimpse of what our justice system is here. It's a joke. So early on in Jameel's process, he was caught in August 2019. I reached out to some police that we know and said, is there any way that he could work off this gun charge? Jameel said, I don't really know anything. I'm not in the streets like that. And after one interaction with the officer said, I think we might be able to do something. Just living in Benton Harbor, you know things that you don't realize you know. So that officer reached out to the prosecutor and said, we'd like to pull that file. We'd like to work with them. To which the prosecutor, and this is third party, I'm only sharing what was relayed to me. But the officer who I trust says, the prosecutor reached out and said, we don't care if this guy gives you cold case murders. We're not working with him. To which my friend, as a police officer, he said never in over 5 years of narcotics work has he had a prosecutor deny him the ability to work with somebody. To me, this points back to the fact that our case, me and Jameel, our case and the publicity that our case got has given the justice system here a black eye. And I don't think that they were going to work with Jameel for any reason. The first lawyer we had said the same thing. I've never seen a prosecutor so gung-ho about sending somebody to prison. So we knew the cards were stacked against Jameel. We said, hey, we just need to get you to plead guilty. So they dropped most of the charges. He pled to possession of a firearm by a felon and pled to the felony firearms because he'd already at that point done 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. So he's thinking, I'm basically getting out. And when we fired the first attorney and hired the second attorney, that was when Jameel went from being on tether to being physically incarcerated. And his new lawyer, nor his old lawyer, they did not go to the judge and say, hey, his status has changed. He's now incarcerated. We need to change him in the system to not being on probation, but to being physically incarcerated. Mm-hmm. They did. Nobody had that meeting. Nobody filed that claim. So at his sentencing, the judge said that from August of 2019, when Jameel was on tether, to spring of 2021, none of that time was counted as time served. It was all dead time. So the time that Jameel spent physically incarcerated from February 2020 through the next year, 14 months, I think is what it was, he got no credit for time served. So when this is all said and done, he will end up doing close to 5 years, plus he'll have probation time after that for a gun that he knows he shouldn't have had. And that's where, like, if you talk to Jameel, I've talked to him several times, he knows, it was a mistake. I shouldn't have had it. I know I have a felony, but at the same time, there's guys and girls getting out of jail in under a year for the same charge. Jameel was not holding up a liquor store. He was not intimidating anybody with the gun. He was worried a kid was going to grab the gun out of his car. So he put it in his pocket until his brother showed up.
So he was on his own property.
The cousin's property.
He's on the family property. His brother's gun. It was a legal firearm.
Yep.
He didn't point it at anybody. He was just safeguarding it until his brother could pick it up.
And here's one that will probably be common to the listeners here, because you guys are men of color. The call came in that it was a black male wearing Chicago Bulls colors. So as the responding officer was heading out that way, he stopped a man who fit the description, a black man wearing black and red colors, and that guy was in his 60s. Jameel McGee was in his late 30s when this all happened. So that's a point that I struggle with, is how can Jameel McGee and the 60-year-old guy both fit the description, other than it's a black dude in a black neighborhood.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll say we know the answer to that.
those things, right? So that all being aside, Jameel has done what he could do to just put his head down and do his time. He's had no issues in prison. He's had no tickets. He hasn't gotten in trouble while he's been in prison. He's done what he can do to just bide his time. He's mentored some younger prisoners, some guys who are in gangs, and he's trying to, enlighten them that, to step away from that life. So he's doing what he can in prison to do his best. And his earliest release date is February 1st, next week. Jameel has a job lined up. He has a home lined up. He has support systems in place. Yet he has not received the paperwork saying that he's going to be released next week. So for whoever's going to go pick him up, for the job that he's going to start, all of that is in limbo, because they won't provide him with a piece of paper to say when his release date is. Whether it is the first or whether he did something wrong to where it's not the first, there should be no reason it shouldn't be the first. He has the right to know within a week of his release date if he's getting released or not. So that's the call to action for me. Is I have a phone number for the parole office. So Jameel went in front of the parole board September of 2023. It's generally a 3-month process. You go in front of the parole board, you answer their questions, you plead your case, they send you to a psych evaluation. After that, he did that in November. So everything is done. All the boxes that he can check are done. He literally is just waiting for that piece of paper. And every prison that part of my story is I was in prison as well. Every prison had a case manager, somebody who would know the ins and outs of people's cases and would know when they're released, like what is the movement that's happening to get this person moved. That person is not doing their job. And Jameel checks in daily, like most of us would. I'm within 7 days of being freed from this personal hell. I just want to know if I'm going home. And the guy has basically told him, well, if you don't like our process, you shouldn't have come to prison, and threatened him last week and by telling him, we could keep you to 2033 if we want to. That's the end. His earliest release date is February 1st this year. The farthest it could go is into 2033.
And Andrew, what prompted the guy to tell him we can just keep you until 2033 if we want to?
Yeah, according to Jameel, he's annoyed with Jameel checking in on a daily basis and questioning his work ethic. It's a power trip. It's a man who has all the power and no accountability. There's nobody calling on him to do his job better, and that's what I feel like we need to do. So Jameel was in front of, I don't know if they're considered officers on the parole board, but Mr. Flanagan is who Jameel was in front of. And I believe, if I'm understanding correctly, this Mr. Flanagan is the one who makes the final decision or signs off on the final decision. This is not the gentleman who is in the prison with Jameel right now. So Flanagan was part of the parole board, and the phone number for that, I'll give that here, is 517-373-0270. Again, that's the parole board in Michigan, 517-373-0270. Specifically to Officer Flanagan, or Mr. Flanagan. Our question to him at that phone number is, has a decision been made with Jameel McGee? Because the support system that is on the outside is ready for him February 1st. And we don't understand why he wouldn't be released on his earliest release date. If it is helpful as well, Jameel's MDOC number, that's everybody has one. In fact, I just got rid of it. I carry my prison ID with me to remind me to make good choices. But everybody has this identification. It's your social security number in prison, basically. So Jameel's MDOC number is 256 945. Again, that's 256 945. And you may need that. That might help as we call this phone number. That way, there's no doubt who we're talking about. Jameel McGee with that MDOC number. So that is my call to action for this crew and anybody else who watches, is that today we have another 2 hours in Michigan before the parole office would close. It's Friday. It's a government building. They're probably already gone. But we can call starting now and call every day. When Monday morning hits at 9 a.m., we need to have people on the phone. I'd encourage you to set a timer every hour, 2 hours, and give them another call. Just checking the status again. I do think this is a situation where you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. The person answering the call isn't the problem. So if we light into that person, I don't think it's going to help. I think if we're firm, if we're respectful, and if we simply just want answers for our friend, because we have the support system waiting for him, and we can't start that until he's out. So with that, I would yield.
Thank you, Andrew. So
Yeah.
just for context, I'm the only person on this Zoom that does not have a law enforcement background. I have worked in this space for more than 12 years now, helping to make things better between people in the community and the police. And I've also been working on just overall justice system reform and reimagining issues. And this has been a deeply personal journey for me as well as for the three of you. So I just would love to have Bill and Nat, if you would share a little bit about your background and your interest in helping Jameel, and also given the fact that there are a lot of other people that are going through this exact same thing right now. Far too many people are experiencing this, and hopefully whatever we're able to do to help Jameel, hopefully that will help some other people as well. So Bill, would you like to go first, and then Nat?
Yeah.
Sure, sure. My name is Bil Gardiner. I reside in Worcester, Massachusetts, and I am a former Worcester police officer. I was an officer from April 4, 1994 to April 4, 2004. Unfortunately, had to leave the job because I was bullied and belittled for 10 years because I wouldn't bend the law, break the law, or step on people's civil rights. So I've got a really pretty good eyeful of how the criminal justice system works, how the court works, both criminally and civilly. And the first thing that comes to mind that I think a lot of people don't think about is that depending on your economic status, that's going to determine the quality of the defense you get in any situation. So if I'm making $1 million a year, I can afford the best attorney, in the country. But if I'm not, and I'm lower socioeconomic, I can't. And our justice system is supposed to be equal for all people. So right then and there, just without any, foolishness, funny business going on behind the scenes, that's not true, that our justice system is legal. So, and then to hear that the stories about his attorneys that he's had thus far, that just, I think that speaks for itself. It's a shame that he's in jail for something that seems a reasonable person would believe that is what happened, that his brother left the firearm in his vehicle. He was just holding it so nobody would steal it. And he got caught with it. And unfortunately, once you've gotten into the system and they've got a taste for you, it's very, very hard to get out or get a fair break. So that's what I think of my initial thoughts, and I'll throw it to Nat.
Okay, thanks, Bill. My name is Nat Alston, and I'm probably the senior citizen of this group here. When we talk about that, throw a little humor in there a little bit. My background is varied. I spent 10 years in law enforcement, and I guess, AJ, if you don't mind, I'm going to play a little bit in terms of the background. So when we record this, people will see it, for one. And when I say that, in terms of my background, several of those years I was with an organization here in Maryland. I live in Maryland, in Columbia, Maryland. And for the first 5 years, I was a member of this organization, the Maryland State Police. I'm a former Maryland State Trooper. Like I said, I'm a little bit older than you guys. I went in there in 1969. I was the 10th African American to join the Maryland State Police back in 1969, and stayed there for 5 years, left the state police and joined a county agency down here, Prince George's County, for 3 years, and then subsequently took over as chief of police at Bowie State College, which is now Bowie State University. So 10 years in law enforcement. My undergrad is in law enforcement. At one time in my family, we had 4 police officers. 3 were state police and 2 was metropolitan. So I pretty much, even though maybe not regularly in terms of Bill leaving recently, I spent a lot of years in 3 different agencies, state, county, and higher education. One of the other things that I'm very much proud of too, back in 2004 to 2007, I was on the Maryland State Commission. I was appointed by our governor then to serve on a newly formed commission on ex-offender employment. We now call them returning citizens. And I was very much involved in that, still am, in terms of people who were incarcerated, but now that they've gotten out, finding them gainful employment and being a support for them. And I was always asked, well, you're a law enforcement person. Why are you now dealing with returning citizens? Well, it's just what it is. They've served their time. And after they've served their time, it's time for them to get gainfully employed and be reintegrated into society. And why not? My question to the person, why not get involved in that? And having left law enforcement and going into human resources, I was also very strongly advocating for what we have in Maryland, what we call ban the box, where people would fill out an application, and previously the application would have that, have you ever been convicted of a crime? And that, if I checked that box, that would basically automatically deny me any type of gainful employment. So by working on that commission, the Governor's Commission on Ex-Offender Employment, which was returning citizens, we work with state agencies to really eliminate some of those barriers. So a person, if Jameel was in Maryland, he would be out. We would have support systems for him, get him gainfully employed so he can contribute to society. So my passion now, connected with AJ, Andrew, and Bill, is Jameel has served his time. Let's make sure that he's out there into society where he can contribute to society instead of being a tax burden, as some people may think. But now he can contribute to society and really make a strong contribution to society, as well as his family and his children. So I agree with Andrew. We've got to do something for Jameel. He's served his time, as I keep reiterating. Now let's let him be integrated back into society and be a contributing citizen. So yes, I'm able to pivot. When I used to send people to jail, send them to prison, but I've been able to pivot now. And once they've served their time, hey, I'm an advocate for any returning citizen. As a consultant now, when I get contracts from people who want to employ people, part of my talent acquisition strategy to that client is to include returning citizens, making sure that they're gainfully employed and contributing. And we go so far to even have state agencies now that have people whose sole purpose is to integrate into the state systems and all returning citizens. So that's part of my passion now. And Jameel, hey, having seen the film Walking While Black and looking at Andrew and Jameel's story and what Andrew is doing, the least I can do is be part of this team to support Andrew AJ and Bill to make sure that when Jamal does get released, hey, he's got a team that's got his back. And that's my commitment to him.
Yeah, thank you, Nat. Thank you, Bill. And then back to, Andrew, we've been following this since day one, and we've stayed in touch with Jamel and tried to help keep his spirits up, and we've all made commitments to be there for him while he's in and when he gets out. Andrew, I know how committed you are. I know that you and Jamel are brothers, and you've been through a lot together. And he has miraculously kept his head held high and stayed positive. And I know there have been some dark times where he's been depressed and and losing hope. And thankfully, a lot of people have been reaching out to him, and the fact that you have stayed by his side uh, throughout all of this, is a testament to not only to your dedication to your friend, to your brother, but also to the kind of a person that Jamel is. I can see that smile, I can hear that laugh,
Hmm.
and I know that when he gets free and is able to live his life unencumbered by people just trying to look for a reason to put him away, that he's going to do great things, that he's going to be a big contributor to society. I know that, and we hopefully we can get him the justice that he deserves now, which is to let him live his life.
That's right.
Mm.
Yeah, I appreciate that, AJ.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
and
anyway,
I say, Andrew, hey, thank you for staying there and being there. Thank you.
He'd do it for me. I know he would. He's a good human being. So
Good.
so our hope is that February 1st, he gets to leave and carry on with his life. But we need anyone who sees this, we need your help. That number again, Jamel's MDOC number is 256945. The parole board number again is 517-373-0270. And it's Officer or Mr. Flanagan that Jamel was in front of in September of 2023. And we should ask whoever you talk with respectfully, ask when Jamel's going to be freed. What's the holdup? Anything else, Andrew? Did I miss anything?
no, I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thanks to all of you, and we will keep everyone posted on what's going on, and hopefully soon we'll have another one with Andrew and Jamel sitting side by side, drinking some iced tea and talking about what we're going to be doing together to make the world a better place.
Look forward to that.
Yes, no doubt.
Looking forward to it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.